Into the fog of industrial nights welcome a settle-in, and allow the quiet to gather round you. The pace of the day is slowing now. The worries, the noise, the flickering screens, they can all fall away. You've come to a quieter place, a slower time. Softer voice in a world of soot and gaslight. Tonight, we'll drift backward not to a battlefield or a throne room, but to the winding back alleys of Victorian England. We won't be among the aristocrats tonight, nor the scholars in their libraries. Instead, we'll spend our night where most people lived it, in cramped rooms, among the laboring poor. In the heart of a city that never really slept. This is not the Victorian England of tea gardens and petticoats. This is Manchester, or Liverpool, or perhaps Whitechapel, the part of the world built on clanging iron, cotton lint, and endless factory bells, a place where sleep when it came was shallow, interrupted, and shared. Let us begin where all long days end. Let us settle, as they once did, onto a narrow mattress, in a house where the walls are thin, and the nights are never truly quiet. Segment 1. Why was it bad? The night that never let you rest. Imagine yourself now. You're in your early 20s or perhaps no more than 16. You've come to the city in search of work. Maybe from the countryside. Maybe from Ireland. You've left behind fresh air and family for the promise of wages and food. It's the 1870s, the height of industrial England, and tonight, you will sleep in a boarding house, though sleep is a generous word. The building is narrow, 3 or 4 stories. Leaning slightly as if tired of standing, the bricks are blackened by smoke. The street outside is thick with coal fog, and there's a bitter chill creeping under the door, even in summer. Inside, the hallway smells of boiled cabbage and soap. The walls are damp. Your boots stick slightly on the uneven floorboards. The gaslight flickers. You climb the creaking stairs. Step past slumped shoulders and quiet nods. Others live here, too many. In fact, dozens of men and women packed into a house made for a family of 6. Your room tonight is not private. It is shared with 9 other people. There are 4 beds, 2 of them real beds, the others little more than wooden boxes with old blankets. No one undresses. Clothes are worn day and night. Shoes are tucked under the mattress or slept in. You keep your coat over your chest to stay warm. There's no fireplace here. The window is small, painted shut, the glass cracked in the corner. The air smells of sweat, coal dust, and hair oil. You lie down on the edge of a straw mattress. It creaks. It's damp. You feel something moving underneath, maybe a flea. Maybe worse. And still, you are tired. Bone tired. You worked a 10-hour day at the textile mill, or cleaning chamber pots, or packing goods at the docks. Your back aches, your throat burns from the factory smoke, but sleep doesn't come easily. In this room, people sleep in shifts. Some of your roommates work night hours. Some day. There's always someone coming or going, always a cough. Always a whisper. Someone rolls over. Someone else snores. And then there are the noises outside. A horse cart on cobblestones. A baby crying next door. A constable's whistle in the fog. Even when your body gives and when your eyes close, there is no true rest. The mattress shifts beneath someone else's weight. The neighbor's wall thuds with footsteps. You dream of looms and dust and heavy boots. Bedbugs are a fact of life. So are lice. You try not to scratch. You try not to think about the strange mark on the wall that might be mold. You try not to breathe too deeply. And when morning finally comes, it's not with sunlight. It's with a bell, the factory's morning signal. Your day has started again, before it ever truly ended. This is the rhythm of life in a Victorian boarding house. The unending cycle of work and half-rest. Of fatigue and noise. Of lying down, but never fully sleeping.
The life of Maggie O'Dale, the mill girl's sleepless story. Her name was Maggie O'Dale. She was born in 1859 in a small farming village in County Kerry, Ireland. But her story begins, really, in Manchester, at the age of 14 when she stepped off a crowded train with her older sister, a canvas sack of clothes, and a note pinned inside her dress. Send word if she survives the winter. She did survive. But that first year would steal her childhood. By 15, Maggie was working full days at a cotton mill, 10 hours on her feet, 6 days a week. Her hands bled from the tiny cuts made by thread. The mill floor shook with the rhythm of machines, and the air swirled with fine white dust that clung to her lungs. At night, she returned to the boarding house on Factory Street. It was 3 stories high. She shared a room with 7 other girls, all younger than 20. They took turns sleeping in pairs, rotated beds, and sometimes laid side by side on the wooden floor when space ran out. Maggie never had a bed to herself, but she learned early on a warm spot even next to a stranger was better than none at all. The windows were nailed shut to keep out thieves. The door had no lock. They placed a chair beneath the handle most nights, just in case. Sometimes they'd hear men laughing in the hallway. Sometimes they didn't laugh. When she lay down, sleep came in short bursts. The other girls coughed constantly, mill cough, they called it. Rattling, dry sound. And every few weeks, someone new arrived with an accent Maggie didn't recognize. Someone else left in the night. Maggie kept a scarf wrapped around her head to keep the lice from spreading. She folded her shoes into her arms as she slept, afraid they'd be gone by morning. There was one night, just one, that she would remember for the rest of her life. It was late November. The frost had crept in through the floorboards. Her sister, Mary, had taken ill with a fever and was barely conscious. The house matron wouldn't call a doctor. Maggie stayed awake, sitting at her sister's side, brushing her hair and whispering old lullabies their mother used to hum. That night, the room was still. No laughter in the hall. No snoring. Just the quiet crackle of Maggie's candle. She didn't sleep. But that night, it didn't matter. She just sat beside her sister, willing her to survive. Mary did, barely. They both lived to move out a few years later, to a cleaner part of town, and eventually shared a small flat of their own. But even after Maggie married, even after she left the mills, she never slept deeply. She always woke before the morning bell, and even years later, she said her dreams still smelled faintly of oil and dust. The culture of a bright sleep and Victorian night beliefs in the 19th century. The people of Victorian England slept not only according to fatigue, but also according to status, ritual, and sometimes fear. We think of beds as places to lie flat, to spread out, to rest completely, but for many working-class Victorians, this wasn't the norm. They often slept upright, or half-seated, on benches or propped against walls. Not because it was more comfortable, but because it was all they had. In common lodging houses, beds were sometimes little more than wooden boxes where you sat upright, knees to chest. Others offered what were known as penny seats. For a penny, you could sit on a rope strung from wall to wall. When you leaned forward onto your arms to sleep, the rope supported you. In the morning, the rope was cut and you had to leave. These were called fourpenny coffins when they came with a wooden box instead of a rope. A strange joke, perhaps. Or not a joke at all. It wasn't just about money. It was about how space was rationed, how sleep was compressed. Those with wealth stretched out on mattresses stuffed with feathers. Those without curled up, knees folded, shoulders touching strangers. And beneath it all ran a river of beliefs, some ancient, some peculiar to the Victorian mind. There were superstitions: never sleep with a mirror facing your bed, it might trap your soul. Never sleep with your head toward the north, it invited illness. Never leave a clock unwound in a sleeping room, it was an invitation for death to visit. People feared night air, believing it carried disease. Windows were sealed shut, even in the heat. Ventilation was viewed with suspicion. There was fear of dreams. 2. Dreams were thought to be messages, omens, warnings. Entire books were published to help interpret them. To dream of fire meant betrayal, of teeth falling out, had death in the family, of falling, a warning to change your ways. Servants, factory workers, even middle-class housewives kept dream diaries, carefully noting what they saw and what it might mean. Doctors weighed in too. They warned against reading too much before bed, fearing it would overstimulate the nerves. Others recommended chloroform, opium drops, or even electric sleep aids, a strange collection of belts, masks, and headgear designed to correct sleeplessness. And still, sleep remained elusive for many, because beyond the rituals, the posture, and the potions, there was the simple truth: the cities were noisy, the beds were shared, the bodies were exhausted. Sleep, in the Victorian world, was not a luxury. It was a negotiation with space, with superstition, and with fatigue. The sleep of the wealthy, where silence was designed. Imagine now a townhouse in Belgravia, or perhaps a country estate in the hills outside Bath. The lamps are gaslight, but carefully maintained. The air smells faintly of lavender and beeswax. It is quiet not because the world outside is quiet, but because the walls are thick, the windows double-paned, and the staff paid to ensure peace. This is where the Victorian upper class slept, not in fear of bedbugs or theft, but in ritualized calm, not beneath a borrowed blanket, but under embroidered quilts. With lace-trimmed nightgowns and pillowed luxury, their bedrooms were large, often with adjoining dressing rooms. There were nightstands with laudanum drops and opiate, prescribed for nervousness and sleeplessness. There were glass water decanters, sometimes with lemon slices, or special mineral blends for digestion. The bed itself was a centerpiece, mahogany or walnut, tall, canopied, with thick curtains, meant not just for warmth, but for privacy and the filtering of dreams. It was made by servants each morning, turned down again each night. The hot bricks or ceramic bed warmers placed beneath the sheets by a maid an hour before bedtime. Before sleeping, a member of the upper class might read a letter, or a few lines of poetry by candlelight, perhaps write in a personal journal, or read a chapter from a leather-bound volume. But never too much. Doctors warned against too much stimulation. It could agitate the female mind, or worse, lead to a case of night frights. They might sip a warm tonic milk with nutmeg, or a spoonful of brandy. Then, when the time came, the household quieted. Candles were snuffed. Shoes lined neatly beneath the edge of the bed. Nightgowns buttoned to the throat. Sleep came easier here, because discomfort was pushed away by servants, by architecture, by privilege. Even illness was handled quietly. If a guest was ill, they were sent to the sick room, a bedroom designated for isolation and recovery. If a child had nightmares, the governess would sit beside their bed, humming lullabies softly. And if a woman couldn't sleep, there were sleeping draughts, often opium-based, sometimes mixed with morphine, available by prescription, or not. Of course, wealth could not cure everything. There were still nights of restlessness, still dreams that refused to fade, still hearts troubled by grief or guilt. But here, at least, the sheets were clean, the door was locked, and the world outside could be kept at bay. And so they slept, or pretended to. And when morning came, it arrived not with the bell of a factory, but with the quiet knock of a maid bearing a silver tray. Warm tea, a folded paper, a silent bow. Outro, a return to stillness, and now you can leave this place behind. The ropes, the shared mattresses, the flickering gaslights, the coughing, the whispers, the endless bells. Let it all fade. You are not in a boarding house tonight. There is no cold creeping in from the floor, no stranger turning beside you, no fear of being woken too soon. Tonight, your room is yours. Your breath is steady, and the world is quiet. So sleep gently, and dream, if you wish, of cities long past, where even the sleepless found rest. Eventually, good night.